The dressing room falls silent. Tears stream down hardened faces of warriors who've battled on the world's toughest cricket fields. Usman Khawaja, the man who rewrote what it means to be Australian, has just announced his retirement. But this isn't just another farewell. This is the end of a journey that started in a refugee camp and finished as one of cricket's most elegant batsmen. What his family reveals about those final moments before his decision will shake you to your core. Steve Smith's voice cracks as he recalls the day Khawaja walked into the Australian team meeting room with that familiar calm smile, the one that had steadied countless innings under pressure. Smith leans forward, his eyes distant, transported back to Brisbane 2016 when Khawaja compiled a masterful double century against New Zealand. That wasn't just an innings, Smith explains. That was a statement. A declaration from a kid born in Islamabad who'd been told countless times he didn't belong in Australian cricket. Pat Cummins interrupts, his captain's composure momentarily shattered. He talks about the 2023 Ashes at Edgbaston, where Khawaja stood like a sentinel against England's hostile bowling attack. The ball was seaming viciously, the crowd roaring for blood, but Khawaja just kept leaving, kept defending, kept absorbing everything thrown at him. Cummins describes watching from the balcony, mesmerized by the sheer mental strength required to bat like that. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't highlight reel material. It was pure, concentrated Test cricket at its finest. Mitchell Stark adds his perspective, remembering their New South Wales days together, when Khawaja was just another talented batsman trying to break through. But something separated Usman from the rest. Stark calls it hunger mixed with grace. While others played with aggression and ego, Khawaja batted like he was painting. Every cover drive was a brush stroke, every clip off his pads was poetry. The technical perfection came from thousands of hours in the nets, but the elegance? That was innate. David Warner, his opening partner through so many battles, shares something unexpected. He talks about the morning of a crucial test match in Pakistan, Khawaja's birthplace, where emotions ran deeper than any cricket match should allow. Warner watched Khawaja sit alone in the corner, prayer beads in hand, lips moving silently. When Warner asked if he was nervous, Khawaja looked up with those steady eyes and said he was just grateful. Grateful to represent Australia in the land of his birth. Grateful that his parents' sacrifice had led to this moment. Warner's voice drops to almost a whisper when he admits that he'd never truly understood pressure until he saw Khawaja carry the weight of two nations on his shoulders that day. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button for all sports updates because we're bringing you the stories that matter. Khawaja's wife Rachel speaks with the kind of quiet strength that mirrors her husband's batting style. She remembers the rejection, the times he was dropped from the Australian team despite scoring centuries. The phone would ring late at night, selectors delivering news that crushed dreams, and she'd watch this proud man fight back tears, question his worth, wonder if he'd ever get another chance. But here's what the cameras never showed. Rachel describes Usman waking up at 5 the next morning after each rejection, heading straight to the nets, working on his technique with a focus that bordered on obsession. No complaints, no public outbursts. Just relentless improvement. His brother Arsalan reveals family secrets that paint a fuller picture of the man behind the elegant drives. Growing up in Western Sydney, cricket wasn't just a sport for young Usman. It was his language, his way of proving he belonged in a country where his brown skin sometimes made him feel like an outsider. Arsalan's eyes light up describing their backyard battles, where a plastic ball and a taped bat became weapons in an endless sibling war. Even then, Usman had that technique, that patience. He'd defend 4 hours, waiting for the bad ball, never giving his wicket away cheaply. Their father Tariq interrupts with a story that brings everything into focus. He talks about leaving Pakistan in 1991, arriving in Australia with nothing but hope and 2 young sons. Tariq worked security jobs, night shifts that destroyed his body but paid for cricket equipment and coaching. He'd stand in empty parking lots at 3 in the morning, watching security cameras, dreaming of a future where his son wore the baggy green. When Usman made his Test debut in 2011, Tariq sat in the stands at the SCG, weeping openly, not because his son had made it, but because every pull shot, every defensive prod, every moment at the crease was a tribute to sacrifice, faith, and the immigrant dream realized. Rachel returns to the present, describing the moment Usman told her he was retiring. They were sitting in their backyard, watching their daughters play, and he simply said his body was telling him it was time. No drama, no crisis. Just acceptance. But then he smiled that smile, the one his teammates know so well, and said he'd achieved more than that refugee kid from Islamabad ever dared imagine. The statistics tell one story. Over 4,000 test runs, multiple centuries across 4 continents, an average that sits comfortably above 40, but numbers can't capture what Khawaja meant to Australian cricket's evolution. Nathan Lyon sits in the same dressing room where this story began, surrounded by younger players who hang on his every word. Lyon explains that Khawaja changed the culture. Before Usman, there was an unspoken expectation about what an Australian cricketer looked like, sounded like, believed in. Khawaja shattered those limitations not through confrontation but through undeniable excellence. His Muslim faith wasn't hidden or apologized for. His Pakistani heritage wasn't downplayed to fit in. He brought his whole self to the crease, and his bat did the talking. Marnus Labuschagne, who learned his craft watching Khawaja at Queensland, shares an interaction that defined his own approach to batting. During a tough series when Labuschagne was struggling for form, Khawaja pulled him aside. Instead of technical advice, Usman talked about identity, about finding strength in who you are rather than trying to become someone else. That conversation transformed Labuschagne's career. He realized that batting wasn't about mimicking others but discovering your own rhythm, your own truth. The Pakistani cricket community has embraced Khawaja as one of their own, even as he represented their fiercest rivals. Former Pakistan captain Babar Azam speaks with genuine affection about Khawaja's 2022 tour to Pakistan, where Usman scored twin hundreds in Karachi. Babar describes the moment after Khawaja's second century when Pakistani fans chanted his name louder than they'd cheered for their own players. That transcended cricket. That was recognition of a journey, a bridge between nations built by one man's grace and talent. Justin Langer, who coached Khawaja through some of his darkest periods, offers perhaps the most telling insight. He recalls team meetings where Khawaja would sit quietly, rarely the loudest voice, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Langer describes a maturity that came from adversity, from being dropped and fighting back, from representing a community that saw him as a pioneer. That maturity translated to his batting. The flashy stroke maker of his youth evolved into a patient, calculating run accumulator who valued his wicket like treasure. In his final test innings, Khawaja walked off to a standing ovation that seemed to stretch forever. His teammates formed a guard of honor. Opposition players applauded. And somewhere in the stands, an older couple from Pakistan who'd sacrificed everything held each other and cried. Because Usman Khawaja's retirement isn't just about cricket. It's about possibility, about immigrants and refugees seeing that their children can achieve greatness without abandoning their identity. It's about technique and talent, yes, but more importantly, it's about dignity, grace, and the quiet power of simply being yourself in a world that constantly demands conformity. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for all sports updates because legends like Khawaja deserve to have their stories told, and we're here to bring you every inspiring moment from the world of sports.